Hi, good morning and good evening, everyone. This is Rakesh here. We'll just wait for a couple of minutes for the rest of the people to join. So meanwhile, Sandeep and Lakshmi, if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask your questions. All right, so we'll proceed with the session. I thought we'll just wait for some of our friends to join. Please confirm if you can see my screen and listen to my voice so that we can proceed with today's topics. If you have any questions on yesterday's session, please let me know so that I can clarify them and proceed with today's topics. Alright, so yesterday we are looking at extractions, flat file to, thanks Jennifer. Yesterday we are looking at extractions, flat file to flat file and flat file to database extraction. So we will proceed further with that. So today we will see a database to database extractions. So this is general database migration projects. We'll have a database to database extraction scenarios, and the next one that we will see is SAP ECC to a database and a structured flat file. So I'll show you what is the difference between an unstructured target flat file that we created earlier and what is a structured flat file. So this is a general approach that is followed for LSMW. We'll look into it, and then we will see conditions. We have seen flat file to database, then right, so before this we'll see a database to a flat file extraction, then database to database, database to flat file, SAP ECC to database and flat file at the same time, and after that we will see something called as conditions, scripts, and global variables. So this is pretty much close to our real project jobs. So if you look at the SAP AIO methodologies or PPDMs, best practices for data migrations or rapid deployment solution, all those jobs are built with condition scripts and global variables, and we will see, we will start learning this thing with how do we create the framework and how do we create the structures. Then we'll proceed with the rest of the transformations. Once this is done, we will proceed with architecture class called central repository, single user instance and multi-user instance, and then we can proceed with the transformations. Okay, so now let us look at extractions, database to database. So first let us log into our database, which is SQL Server Management Studio, and the navigation is Start, All Programs, Microsoft SQL Server 2008 R2, Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. So this is our backend database that we are using, but unfortunately, because we have only one database, we are using the same one as a source and target. So in the same server, you also have a database called as Northwind, and this is something that you can download from internet. Right, Northwind database is the initial projects of SQL, so you can download them free of cost and add, and you have almost pretty much close real-time data available in that database. Northwind, you have something called as AdventureWorks, or you have something called as eFashion and Club. So people who are from business objects background, they will be pretty much familiar with eFashion database. So this is the one, eFashion. So you can download this and you can start working on this one. And you also have something called as Club database, which also has a real-time data. So just giving you examples of databases that you can download from internet and attach to the server. So how do you attach a database to your server? So you need to download the MDF file, Microsoft data file. MDF is the extension database file, and once you download it on your system, you need to select your database, and you just need to go and click on attach, and then MDF file location, just go and browse and add, select a particular file, and just click on OK, and your file will be added to your server. So once your database is added, you can go and look at that database here in the list of databases. So once you expand that, you can see the specific tables, table tables with almost pretty much close real-time data you can see in them. So in those cases now I'm using Northwind as my source database because there are a few tables that we can use for live scenarios here. So we have orders tables and order details tables. We can use these two, and we have products, and there should be one more table called product lookup. Right. So people just wrote some test tables into this one, so that's the reason why we are not able to see the actual list of tables. Okay, right, we'll go with it with orders and order details. So first thing is I need to add this to my data services. So how do I do a database to database extraction? So now I already have target data store, so I can use that for my target data store, but I don't have a source data store. Right, so the reason why I'm trying to write on a notepad before doing it on the system is this is one good practice we learned from SAP. when we are there working on a project. So they, even before giving you a system access or access to your repository, they will ask you to start creating the TDD. So each and every developer should write their own technical design document. With that, they have to give the job name, the data flow name, what they are trying to do. So they have to list out all the activities, everything. And once a code peer review is done and a code review is done, then only a developer will get an access to the local repository to start building his job. So with this, what will happen is, like, the developer will foresee what he is trying to do on the system, right? So if he is not sure about something, he will get it sorted out with the help of the senior consultants there, or a lead consultant sitting next to him, and that. So every team has a lead consultant and a senior consultant assigned to them. So these guys will try to make sure that they write a proper technical design document. So with this help, they will foresee what they have to do in the system. So now this guy knows what is source, what is target, how he's going to load that, and what are the different business rules that he has to apply. So he has to write down all those things in the technical design document, and that will that is a really best practice, where it helps us to see what are the different steps in the jobs that we need to do. So I'm just trying to put that culture here. So source data store creation. So first step is we already created a target data store and we created a template table. But now this is the source data store, and how do I pull my source tables into data services? So this is step number one. And next, once it is done, then create a job, then a data flow, then pull your source table, then create a template table, connect them, and execute the job. A simple process. So first we need to define a connection to our source data store, then import our source table. So I'm just going to the right terminology now. I just wrote a simple jargon there, simple words there, but now I'm talking about the right terminology. So first we need to define a connection to the source data store by defining, one second. So first we need to establish a connection between our source database and data services system, and once we do that, the next step is we need to import the table, right? So when we import the table, it is we import the metadata from our source system. So how do I create? This is also a database. So to create a data store to my source database, which is Northwind, I need to establish a connection to that database which has, or to that system which has this database. So create a new data store, ds underscore source. Then the data store type is the database, and it's Microsoft SQL Server, and it's 2008 version. Database server name is BO41. Database name is Northwind, or if you just have any confusion, you can copy it from here and paste it here. Then database name, the credentials that we use to connect to the system. Right, just click on apply to make sure there are no syntax errors. Now click on OK, and your data store is created. This is the same way how we created our target data store. Now the second step is, I know my table names here, and how do I import those table names into my data services? So when I say I import the metadata from this database to my data services system. So metadata is nothing but our table structure the column names, the data types, and their lengths, right? So description about the tables, or you can call this as like a bookish definition, the data about the data, right? The structure in which your data is saved. So there are two options. One is import by name, if you know the exact table name. So yeah, before that, so you need to select your data store, do a context menu, right click, and go with these two options. One is import by name if you already know the table name properly, or you want to search by a keyboard, you can go and click on search. Now this is my source data store, and the data that I'm trying to search is an external data. So when I say internal data, internal to data services or external to data services. So that is external. Next one is object type that I'm trying to search is a table, and it contains or equal to, I can give the word, this word is there in the search string, or it is equal to that search string. So I'll say contains. So I'll say order, and I want to search all the tables or views with the word order. So if you look at this, it will give you all the tables and views that are created with this structure, right, with the name orders, or the word which or in which order is present. So I'll try to use these orders and order details, these two tables. So I'm selecting these tables, and I'm doing an import. So close this, and once you open your permanent table, you will see this orders and order detail table. Now what is the difference between order template table and a permanent table? So in the previous example, we created one template table. So how did I create this template table? By selecting it from the right hand side tool palette, or the option 2 that I have is to select the template table from my target data store and drag and drop it into my data flow. Right, these are the two options in which I created this one. So differences, I'll just open this data flows and I'll try to show it here. So my template tables are present under the template tables, and my permanent tables are present here. So when I drag and drop a template table into my next data flow, so the first data flow where I'll be using my template table is my target table where I create them, right? If you look at this one, so in this data flow, when I create a template table for the first time, it will always be my target table, and when I reuse it in another data flow, it will be my source table by default, because in one table you are creating and populating it, and the second table you are actually using that as a source, and further you are going to proceed with that. And the main second difference of a template table is something that gets dropped and recreated, right? So that is something that gets dropped and recreated. So it is like a temporary table on your database. So every time you run your BODS job, so it will be dropped and recreated, which means if I do any changes in my column structure, right, any changes on these columns, additions, deletions, rename on my metadata, so that will not have any impact on this table. So when this table is dropped and recreated, every time it is recreated, it will be created with its preceding object's metadata. So which means it will be created with a new structure. So let us say if it has this structure now, and I'm going to change my source structure. So when I rerun the job, this structure will also be changed, because this table, it is getting dropped and recreated. So that is the nature of the job, nature of the template table. So especially when there is a change, or for all the intermediate tables, use the template table, and especially when there is a change in the metadata, so you always go and use a template table, right? All the intermediate tables, so still you are not final with the actual target structure, so you are trying to create a structure which can be changed quite often, then in that cases you will go with a customer template table and the permanent table. So if I try to reuse a permanent table in any data flow, so it will ask me, do I want to make it as my source or as my target, just as my flat files ask me, right? So if I make it as a target and open this table, you look at this options, you do not have anything called as drop and recreate. So these tables, which means they will not be dropped, which means they have a same structure, fixed structure. So if there are any changes in the metadata, this job will throw an error. So if I have a permanent table as a target table and there are some changes in the source metadata, so next time when I run this will fail because the structure that is trying to push the data into the source table is not same as a structure that is trying to push the data into the target table is not same as the structure of the target table. So the column structure, the metadata is different, so it will throw an error, right? So this is your key difference between your source and permanent table. So when I run a data flow which has a template table as a target table, so every time it gets dropped and recreated, so whatever the data that is present in my source table will be loaded into my target table. But if I do the same thing with my target permanent table, so every time I run my job, the data gets appended to the target table. So if your record is loaded, it will get, the next time when I run this, it will get appended to the target table. So target table will not get dropped and recreated. The data from the source gets appended to the target table. So that's the key difference between your template table and your permanent tables. So now I have I established a connection to my source database and I imported my source tables, and if you want to look at the data, I can select the table, do a context menu and go for view data. Alright, so now let me create a job. So this is database to database extraction. So first data flow, df underscore db underscore db underscore ext, database to database extraction. So I know I have my orders table. I drag and drop it and make it as my source. Alright, now create a template table. Orders stage, and now if you select a template table from the right hand side tool palette, as I was telling, like you have this drop down option where you can go and pick your data store. So just click on OK, connect it directly. I'm not using any transformations as of now, I'm just doing one-to-one loads, right? So, and validate the job to see if there are any errors. No errors found. Select your job, right click and execute it. The job is successfully completed, and if you look at this, 830 records are extracted from orders table in 0.041 seconds and loaded into the target table in 0.049 seconds, and the total time for the job execution is 3.333 seconds, right? So pretty fast. Quite good examples we can see as a part of the training to tell how fast data services is. And this is our database to database extraction. I click on the magnifying glass, I see the data in the orders table, and if I go to the profile tab and click on records, I can see the count. Or if you want to go and cross-check on the database, go to the database target, expand the tables, and then you will see orders underscore STG. Alright, so this is the table that we just created, and select top 1000 rows. You have the code here. Count of star to take the count of records. Execute that, and this is the count, 830 records. So that is a simple match. So if you want to do a further reconciliation activity, a cross-checking the count of records or count the actual records, you can look at some data here, right? A particular order ID, and we can just search with this order ID if it is present there. Right, see on the database you'll go and select star from this table orders underscore stage where order ID is equal to 10248. Right, so if you get the same record, then also on the data level you're doing a match. So that is nothing but a test strip that we do on the database, right? So we see some order IDs here, and you want to cross check that the same order IDs are loaded. So you note these order IDs. So how you can note that, you can just right click and do copy cell, and try to paste that in a notepad or an Excel. So you copy some values here from data services, right? And you go and cross check them on the database, and if it is present in both the places, you create you'll write a document saying that these are the values that I checked in data services. They are present, screenshot from the data services side, and these are the documents or these are the order IDs I cross-checked from the database side. This is the script and screenshot. So with that, you complete your test script documents, right? So you will, once you complete this test script document, you will send it for user acceptance test. And once the user acceptance test is done, you will move it to the production system. So that is the order in which we follow in the projects. We'll talk in more details once we are looking into the project orientation. So next one is a database to unstructured flat file. So I'll say why I'm saying it as unstructured flat file. So create the data flow df underscore db underscore ff underscore ext. So now select my order details and make it as my source. Now I will use a query transform that is present in my tool palette. This is one of my transformation that is present under platform, which is my query transformation. So if you look at the descriptions, retrieves a data set that satisfies condition that you specify. It says retrieves a data set that satisfies the conditions that you specify. So it is not a simple transformation. This is the most used transformation in all the projects. So if you look at the percentage of usage of transformations, this will be almost like 90 to 95% used, because this is quite flexible transformation, and you can do you can do wonders using the query transformation. So we'll talk in details about that a little later when we are looking at the platform transformations. But now I'm trying to show you what is a structured and right. So sorry, I'll talk about that in the next job. So now we are talking about unstructured flat file. So how do I create an unstructured flat file? The same way, go to the file flat files, select it, right click and go for new, ff underscore order details target. So just copy the same name and mention the path as your desktop or your outbound directory, and then give the file name .txt, then give it as a tab separated file, and write the row, skip the row headers, no, write the row headers as yes, because it is my target file. So this is what I'm calling as unstructured target file, because I'm creating a target file without any predefined structure, and I'm trying to link it with my source table. So whatever my source table has, whatever the metadata my source table has, it is pushed onto my target table. So this is my unstructured target. So even if you open this one at any point of time, you'll see only one field defined there. So link it with your database, validate that, no errors found, execute this one. So guys, if you have any questions, please you can stop me in the middle, or if you feel that I'm going a bit fast, you can stop me in the middle. Please let me know so that I can be on the same page. Now if you look at this, 2155 records are processed in 0.015 seconds and written into the target in 0.027 seconds. So why is that different? So if you are looking at this one, job DB to DB extraction, if you look at this, some 800 records are done in 0.041 seconds, but now in the second job, if you look at this, is done in a little lesser time, though there are more number of records. Why? So as I told you, data services will collect the statistics in the beginning. When you run it for the first time, it will go and cross-check from which database, which data store it is trying to fetch the data. So those stats will be saved on your system, and that will really help you to do the next run with the same data stores or same, what are the stats that you already collected. The system will go and utilize those stats rather than doing it right from the scratch on the job. So this is the file that is created with 2000 odd records. So this is a tab delimited file that we just created. Okay, so we saw a database to database, database to flat file extractions, two extractions we saw. And the next one, we will see from SAP to, this is also done, the second one is done. Now the third one we will see SAP to a database and also parallelly a structured flat file. So I'm going to create that. So for this, the first step is I need to create a SAP data store. So to create SAP data store, I need some information from my SAP system. So the first one that I need is my SAP application server, name, then second one is my instance number, third one is my username to log into SAP, fourth one is my password to connect to my SAP system. So now let us go and see how do we connect to SAP system first. So the navigation for that will be start, all programs, SAP front end and SAP logon. So the navigation will be start, all programs, SAP front end and SAP logon, or you will see the logon pad as a shortcut created on your desktop. You can double click on that one as well. So once you double click on that logon pad, the way we have initial login screen for data services, so we also have a similar logon screen for our SAP one. So select the ECC server and click on double click on the ECC server and you will get into the logon screen. Oops. Just give me a second. I need to check my client number. Just a second, please. Just give me a second. I'm calling to the basis team to just check my username and password. Alright, sorry, just trying to check with other systems as the basis guy is not reachable. Just give me 1 second. Right, so got into another system where I have an access to this ECC. So this is our repository. Okay. So to do an ECC to database extraction and also a structured flat file specific for LSMW activity. So first thing is I need to set up a connection between BODS and ECC by creating a data store. So for this activity I need application server name, instance number, then user ID and password. So these are the things that I need from an SAP system to establish a connection from BODS to SAP ECC using data store. So the second step is to import or search the table. Then third step is create a job, same process as before, then data flow, then drag your source SAP table, then template table, a query transformation, and create a flat file using query transformation, connect, and the first step is to execute. So these are the simple steps that we'll be doing. One is you need to create a data store. The second one is you need to import your source tables that you want to use here. So next one is you need to create a job, a data flow, and pull in your source SAP table, create a template target table. Now since you want to create a structured flat file, we will use a query transformation, and using query transformation we'll create a structured flat file and we will connect it and we'll just connect all your source table, query transformation, target tables, and target flat file, and then we will execute the job. So let us go and do that on the system now. So first step is to create an SAP data store. So again, do a context menu, right click and go for new, and now call this as ds_sap_source. Now this is not a database, so now I'm going to change this one as SAP applications. Earlier we created something called as database, and since we are connecting to the backend SQL server, so now I'm going to take it as an SAP application, and then I have to give the server name, username, and password. So from where I will get all those things. So if you go to the SAP logon pad, so this is my SAP logon pad, and if you look at this one, these are the SAP tools that are added, like SAP BW system or SAP ECC system. So this is the ECC system to which we are connecting. So select that one on the SAP logon pad, do a right click and go for properties. So if you have any questions on how do you get into the SAP logon pad, this is the navigation: start, all programs, SAP frontend, and SAP logon. So once you click on that, it will take you to this logon pad. So you select your system on which you need to connect, right click and go to properties. So in the properties you will see the application server name. So I'm using it here. Then I'm giving the username and password. Now you just click on advanced here, and you will see some basic level information that you need to provide. So once you click on advanced, general, overview, overflow file directory, if a file is being overflown, right, with more volume of data. So if you want to save it somewhere, you can define the path, language and code page. We are giving it as different. We are giving it as default. So if you look at the code page for SAP, it will be UTF-8 or UTF-16. That's the code page code that we have. Then ABAP execution options. So generate and execute. So there are two options here. One is generate and execute. The second one is execute and preload. So ABAP execution. So what happens is, this is my SAP application, my BODS system, and my backend database. So these are very simple things, but I'm just spending more time here so that our foundation will be strong, and going forward it will be easy for us to understand all those things. So when I write to my BODS from my BODS system to ECC, so I should talk in my ECC language, right? So then only my ECC system can understand what I am trying to say, right? So it generates an ABAP program which will go and request ECC for data, right? So this program will be created in my system or the server where my data services is installed. So for the first time when you are creating a data store, it will be generate and execute, and the second time you can use execute and preload on the development environment. Now again you move to QA environment, you make sure that you have to make it as generate and execute as the first option. Alright, so the next one is client number. So how do I know which client number I have to work on? So if you just close this one and try to re-log into the logon pad, double click on that and it will take you to the logon pad. So I see something called as a client number here, which is 800, or you can just click on this drop down and it will show you the client number once you log into the system. So I will give my client number here as 800. The next one, the system number. So this system number is nothing but your instance number that you can pick from your SAP Logon pad. So right click and go to properties, and instance number is 77. So I'm giving this 77 as an instance number here. Right, so every time you create a system, so you create it with a particular instance number. Now you want to make a copy of that system, you just make a copy of the instance number, and that is the key differentiator between system 1 and system 2. So that is my instance number. Then execute in the background, you can choose it as yes or no. Then data transfer methods. So these are the different data transfer methods. Then RFC is something new that is coming in from Data Services version 4.x. Right, so prior to that we don't have RFCs, we have direct download, shared directory, FTP, and custom transfer program. Well, let us go with the direct download. So what is the direct download? So if my volume of data is less, right? If my volume of data that I'm requesting in this particular table is less, the system will send a response to request to the database. Database responds back to the ECC system, and that data is sent to my boards. So this is a direct download. If I have less volume of data, this is a direct download that will happen. Then the second one is a shared directory mechanism. So what is a shared directory? So you remember we spoke about the ABAP data flow introduction. So there is a system on which my data services is installed, and there is a system or server on which my SAP is installed, right? So on the system there will be a shared directory which will be a common share for both SAP and ECC. So first the basis guys, they create a folder here and they give a read and write access to that folder from the system on which data services is installed. Now when I'm going for a shared directory mechanism, this is how it works. PODS sends a request to ECC. ECC sends the request back to database. Database exposes that data in the form of a flat file to my share folder, and data services reads the data from a flat file. So reading the data from a flat file is pretty fast compared to my SAP direct interaction. Alright, so in that case I will go for shared directory, and when I'm going for a shared directory, I also need to mention the work directory on the SAP server and application server path for the shared directory. The next one is RFC. Since SAP acquired PODS, remote function calls is the mechanism that each SAP system communicates with other SAP system. So it also established an RFC connection between SAP data services and SAP ECC. So if you go to ECC or if you go to the SAP system, SAP BI, so on the source system connections you will see a separate connector called as data services, which will allow you to communicate between create a direct RFC connection between data services and SAP. Right, so the next one is FTP. So it is pretty much similar to shared directory, but for an FTP you need to go for an IP address and then the folder in that system. So it is a remote server where it has a folder allocated for you. So you write the data into FTP and read the data from there. Now if you are writing some custom transfer program, you can go with a custom transfer program. So these are the different options. So especially the key ones are direct download when you have less volume of data, and shared directory when you have huge volume of data. So just keep this in mind. So I'm going for direct download now. Now the work directory on the local directory, I'm just giving the same path, and security profile will be SAP underscore all. So that will be my security profile, and number of connection retries. So make sure that this is 1. So what is connection retry? So when you try to communicate from data services to the SAP system, that is called a connection try, and once it fails, if it's trying to connect for the second time, it is a connection retry. So why do I want to keep it as 1? Because if I give it as 2 or 3 and give a wrong password, which means you are trying to communicate to the SAP system with the wrong password thrice, the impact is the particular account gets logged out if you try to enter that wrong password thrice into an SAP system, or if you try to log in with a username and a wrong password into SAP system by keying in the wrong password for 3 times, that particular user ID gets locked. So to avoid such situation, we will go with number of connections retries as 1, and that's pretty much the information that you need to pull in here. Right, so just click on apply to see what are the information that you gave is correct. If the system is not scolding us, not showing any pop-ups, then the information that we have here is correct. Or if it is showing some pop-up screen and it says that I'm not able to communicate to the ECC system, then we need to go and cross-check the credentials that we gave here. And since we are trying to establish a connection to the external ECC system, this SAP system is also present in a different physical location to that of data services machine. So it has to go through network. So it will take a little time now. So once all these credentials are applied on this data store, you can just click on OK, and your SAP data store will be created. So once the SAP data store is created, we will see how different is that from a database data store. So while this happens, let us go and look at the ECC part of it. So once you double click on the logon pad, right, so it will take you to the initial logon screen. So this is my SAP logon screen, and I need to key in the username and password and just click on enter. So once I do this, this takes me to my initial SAP Easy Access screen. So this is my logon screen where this is my first screen of my SAP. So this part of my SAP window is called a transaction bar. So here I entered the transaction code. So to go to each and every window of your SAP system, or to go to different parts of your SAP system, so you need to have a transaction code. So SC11 is my transaction code that will allow me to go and look at my data dictionary. So when I say data dictionary, it is nothing but my area where all my SAP tables are present, right? So as we are trying to extract the data from SAP ECC tables to my database and flat file, so I need to know where and what my tables are. So SE11 is the transaction code, SE11 is my transaction code that will take me to my ABAP dictionaries or data dictionary initial screen, and here I need to key in my database table name and click on display. So these tables will be told by the SAP guys, so no need to worry about that. So how do I know the table names and stuff? They will tell you what are the different table names that you need to extract. Still taking a long time. Oops. So this is my data dictionary, which says the structure of the table, and if you go to this contents button and you click on this and press F8, you'll see the data. Okay. Alright, somebody else is trying to log into this one. Next. Just give me a second, I'll take those credentials and add it in our system. Alright, this is crazy. It's not allowing me to add someone here. Sorry for that. I got one more system access from where we can log in. So if someone else is also logged on, so we are already logged into the other system with the same credentials, so it will say terminate this logon or continue with this logon. So I'm selecting continue with this logon, so that will continue, and SC11 is the transaction code, and Mara is the database table name. Just click on display, and once you see the table structure, this is the metadata of your Mara table, and Mara is nothing but your general materials data. And you click on this content button and press F8, or you see this execute button, you click on this one, and you will see the data that is present on your SAP side. So log into your data services designer, and we are trying to read this data from my SAP system into my database and flat files simultaneously. So this is our local repository. Just click on this. Yes. So here it shows my data store is created. So just let us go and edit, and click on apply and see if all the credentials that we gave are correct, just to make sure that we don't get any error message. Right, so it is not throwing an error message. Then just click on OK, which means all the credentials that we gave are correct. Now the next step, we created the ECC data store. The next step that we have is to search for the next step. Okay, just let me write this on there on the server that we connected. Okay, the first creation of data store is done to SAP system. So we established a connection between SAP and data services. The second one is import the table. So when I import the table, I don't import the data, I just import metadata to various. So just keep this in mind. So we do not deal with data unless and until we execute the job. We always deal with the metadata. So import the table. We import the metadata into various. So the table that I'm going to import here is Mara, and once this is shown, creation of job, then data flow, and then the data flow I need to pull in Mara table, then a query transform, and my target table, and also my flat file, structured flat file. Alright, so go to your project and create a job. Call this as job underscore ECC underscore DB. Oops. So ECC DB flat file extraction, then create a data flow. Right. So now go to your SAP data store, and if you expand it, it is a bit different from what your database data stores look like. Right, database data stores talk about functions and tables because these are the only two options that you have in your database data store. But if you look on the SAP data store, you have functions, you have tables, you also have hierarchies, you also have idocs and ODP objects. Okay, so hierarchical data, the nested structure into which we load the data into the target system, we'll look at them a little later, so we just will concentrate on the tables. So to import a table, so select your data store and go with the same process like your database. You can either import it by name or go by search. Select external data, and the object that you are trying to look for is table. It's not hierarchy or objects, and it contains Mara. So do a search. Since it is an external SAP system, it will take a bit longer time. And just same like database, once you find your table that you're searching for in the list, you'll select, do a context menu, right click, and import that table into your data store. So you're importing your metadata from your ECC system into your data services so that you can start working on that table structure. So once the table is imported, you should be able to see that table here, and we can start using that table in our various jobs. So once I do a search, I'm giving the option here as contains. So search criteria or select criteria. So it contains the word Mara. So all the tables that has a word M-A-R-A in it will be displayed. So out of which you need to go and search which is your right table, and then you have to select it and import it into the system. A few more seconds. It's taking a bit longer than expected. Let's see. Right, so now you see all the list of tables that has word Mara in it. So you just go and look for the right table. So this is the right table. So you need to select it and import that. And once it is done, you'll be able to see the table here under your tables under your SAP data store. So I guess that the system is a bit slow today. It's taking a longer period. Once the class is done, let me just check with the server guy and make sure that it is fast. So generally it is not this slow, so I'm wondering why it is. Right now it is imported. You can just close the search window and you expand this and you see the Mara table here. Now let's go and pull in this Mara table into the data flow. And on SAP tables there is no source table or target table. It is always a source table. So SAP tables can only be used as source, not as target. So the moment you drag and drop it into your data flow, it will be by default a source table, because you cannot write data directly into an SAP table using data services. So you need to use mechanisms like LSMW or iDocs to write the data into an SAP system. So this is my source, and this is my target. I'm using target data store. I'm giving the table name as stage Mara, so I can directly connect this Mara. So what I will do is I'll use a query transformation right from the tool palette and Qt underscore scoping. I'm just calling it as Qt underscore scope because I'll show you what is a column level filter and a row level filter today. So let us say the source table has 100 columns, which I don't want to go and utilize it. Alright, just some small things, they trouble you. Right, especially when you are working with the tool from quite a long time, you just want to see it like how you want it. Alright, so this is my query transformation. I'm calling it as scope. Right, so if you expand the query transformation, it is divided into three areas. One is your source structure, that is called as schema in, and the second one is your target structure, that is called as your schema out. So if I expand my source structure, this is my source metadata. If you want to cross-check this one, you can go and click on the table and expand it here. You'll see the same table structure. Right, so I don't need all these columns. Probably there are 160 odd columns that are present in this table. I don't need all. So I need material number. So this is a row level filter that I'm trying to do. So I want name of the person who created this material, last changed, right? Material type, industry sector, material group, all material number. If it has any previous reference number, then unit of measure. Alright, so this is called as row level filter. So though if I have 160 columns that are present in my source, I don't want 160 columns, I just only want 6 columns. This is how I do a selection from my source to target, and this I define my schema out, which is nothing but my target structure. Right, so these are the columns I pulled in from my target. So this is a row level filter, and if you want to apply a column level filter, you need to go with a where condition here. So if you go with a where condition, so there is a column called LVORM, which is flag material for deletion at the plant level. Right, so this one will have a value called X or null. So I'm just giving it is not equal to X, which means it is null. So the reason or the history behind this particular column is when you are creating a material at a particular plant, like you are manufacturing an engine, right? For that engine, you need grease, you need cotton, you need soldering rod, right? You need that lead, and all these things. You cannot count them as a part of that engine, right? Though you use them to create a machine, you cannot call them to be a part of this machine, because when you are trying to build that different parts in that engine, so you will consider all these things as a labor, but you cannot consider them to be the materials that are present in your engine. So when you do a BOM, this is like a bill of materials, right, on a particular product or a particular machine. So what are the different materials that are used in that particular engine? So if you're trying to do a bill, you cannot count on grease, you cannot count on lead, or you cannot count on the soldering rod. Just giving some rough examples. So in those cases, we will mark this material. Though these materials are present along with your raw material in the plant, you cannot call them to be a part of your final product. So what you do, you mark them with an indicator called as X, which says that these particular materials like cotton, grease, lead, soldering rod, glasses, and all these things are to be marked as deletion, right? These are the materials that are flagged for deletion at the plant level, so that they will not go into the BOM, bill of materials. So that way I'm saying here this is not equal to X. So this is a row level filter. So out of 100 rows, I have 50 rows marked as X and 50 more rows marked as null. I'm taking the second 50 which are not equal to X. So keep that in mind. There are two types of filters that we are learning today. One is a column level filter, and the second one is a row level filter. So just validate to see if your syntax is correct. And now the third thing that we will learn is how do I create a structured flat file. So till now I know how to create my unstructured flat file, going to flat files and going and clicking on new. Now let us see how do I go and create my structured flat file. So within a query transformation, you select the top node, which is your schema, do a context menu, right click, and go and create a file format here, right? So all you need to do is open your query transformation, go to your schema out, select the top schema, right click, and create a file format. So again, it will take you back to the same flat file window. So I'm giving the name as ff_mara stage and the location to be my desktop or my outbound directory in the project. Then the file name and the delimiter, and write the row headers as yes. So now you see it is a structured flat file that I'm going to create. It is not just having a field 1 and varchar 100, but it is a structured flat file that I'm going to create. And if you want to do further changes on this, you can go and do that. And once you generate a flat file, this flat file is created with data and both metadata. So now once SAP LSMW reads that, LSMW reads the exact structure and the data within it, right? So that will be useful for records to be properly inserted into the SAP system without getting kicked off. All right. Also, when you read a flat file, so generally when you connect a flat file to any system and you try to read, sometimes it is displayed as integer, it is displayed as varchar, it is displayed as null. So though your data type is different, you see a different data type in the system because you are trying to extract it from a flat file, right? So we'll look into those more examples going forward. Though your data is one thing, your system ends up showing a different data type just because it is a flat file without any defined structure. So now my flat file is created. If I just go and open this, stage Mara is present, and If you want to open this one, you can open this one and see it has a structure. So that's the reason why I'm calling it as structured data flow. And I'm calling it, I created it right from my query transformation. Now I make it as a target and connect it with my query transform, Qt scope. So query transform can not only load data into one target, it can load data into multiple target objects. Just keep that in mind. So it's not just one, it is many that you can load the data from a particular query transformation. So now I'm loading the data into the database and also into a flat file. Now validate this and see if there are any errors. No errors found. Select the job, right click and execute it. Now the data flows in from Mara table, applying two different levels of filters. One is your row level filter and second one is your column level filter, and it gets loaded into your database table and also your flat file simultaneously. So we have a question. Yes, Zafar, go ahead.
Hey Rakesh, as you said, in the target we can use the multiple, right? So what about the source? Like we have
we can.
A Mara, yeah, we have a Mara table. Like for example, if you want to get the description from the MAKD table, so we can use this one. Like
we can use. Now in the where condition that I'm showing in the query transformation, we'll get to that. So in the where condition where I'm showing this transformation, so if I'm using a MAKD table, I will drag the MAKD table and connect it to my query transformation. And in my schema in, I will see two tables, Mara and MAKD. So I go to the where condition and say where Matner from Mara table is equal to my Matner from MAKD table. So that's the where condition I define, and if I have further where conditions we define, I can go and do that.
So this one is for the raw level, right?
Yeah, the column level and the row level. This is just to avoid those materials flagged as X. I'm just avoiding them here, and I'm doing a selection of my columns. I'm doing only my required column selection.
So this one you are showing the raw level filter, right?
Exactly. This is not a join. This is only a row level filter.
Okay, so what about the column one? Did you explain somewhere? Like I missed something.
No, column, instead of selecting all the columns here.
Oh, okay. Okay. So when you're doing
required columns, yeah, in the query transformation itself.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you.
Right. Right. Thanks, Jaffer. So now if you go back and see, my data is created, right, in this table. And my flat file is also created on my desktop. Okay, this is a pipe delimited flat file. If you want to just cross-check the data, you put it in an Excel sheet and go to data and go text to column delimited, click on next and give the right delimited here. It's not a pipe delimited, it's not a tab delimited, it's a pipe delimited. So click on finish and select the corner cell here and double click on that. You'll see the data properly. Okay, so this is how we read the data from a ECC table, which is Mara. Right, so this is my ECC table Mara. And I read the data from this system into my backend server database. And not only writing it into database, I'm writing a similar structure into a flat file, right? With a structured flat file creation with the help of a query transformation. So there are different options within the query transformation which we did not look at yet. The only options that we saw is schema in, schema out, and a where tab, wherein I did a column level filter, like I selected only my required columns into my schema out by pulling them and dragging, selecting and dragging and dropping them into my schema out. And in the where condition, I applied a condition where a particular field is not equal to X to apply a data level filter, right? So these are the only two options that we saw. Rest of the options we'll see in detail once we are looking at the query transformation, but this is how I read the data from SAP and write it into a database and a flat file. Right, so any questions on today's topics? We saw database to database extraction, and we saw database to flat file, ECC to database and flat file at the same time. Yeah, Zafar, go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. Zafar, you're on mute from your end. You just unmute it and you can, yeah. Go ahead, Zafar.
Yeah, Rakesh, I have a question. Like in a query transform, can we use the conditional statement as well? And if we do, so what percentage in the real-time projects we have to do it? Like
so you can use an end condition, and again you can go for the second thing, or you can, if you have either this or that conditions to be satisfied, so you give and or. So you can use both, and the percentage of usage of that in real-time projects is almost like 70%. You always get different scenarios in which you extract the data. So multiple conditions need to be satisfied for this database to go into the target, so we apply all those filters here.
But we cannot use like if a statement, case statements here, like a function, like for example, if I want to check if Mara so and so, like then else this one, like something like that. Like
that on a, let us say if I have a Matner that is 100, and you want to convert that into A100, so I can go and write a decode for that, right? I can write a decode here saying that, I'm just commenting that one. So you can write a decode statement saying that if your Matner, so this is a business rule application on the data. So if your Matner is equal to A100, so you need to convert that to 1000, else you get the Matner directly from your source.
so this is the replacement of this if statement, right? So for example, like
if then else statement. So you can also write an if then else statement.
Oh yeah, that's the only question I want to ask.
Yeah, you can write them. So that you do on the mapping tab of your query transformation, and filters only you apply them in the where tab. The rest of these things we apply. We'll look at this in detail, Jaffer, once we we start looking at the transformations. So we have a separate session on this one. Once we complete the central repository, we will look at the query transformation and the platform transformations. And once we look at that, we will look in each and every detail with the scenario, and how we write a decode, how we do a concatenation, how I do a row level filter, how I do a column level filter, how do I write an if then else statement, how do I hard code it, how do I decode it, right? How do I create new output columns and get data from some other table using join conditions. So we'll look at multiple scenarios when we are using query transform. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
All right, perfect. So any more questions from Lakshmi and Sandeep? If you have any questions, please let me know into this topic. I'll be glad to answer them. All right, so just go through those recordings one more time. So I think you are getting recordings. Once you confirm your availability for this batch, our staff will be sharing these recordings to you. So go through these recordings, and if you have any questions, please reach out to me tomorrow before we start this topic. So we also have one more thing pending for today, which is condition scripts and global variables and local variables. So we will look at this tomorrow, and once it is done, we will go with creation of single user instance and multi-user instance. Probably we can cover this one and sorry, this one, single user instance tomorrow. So this is again, the real-time things that you work on the project, how you go and create on a single user instance, how do you point your environments with single system, how do you point it to dev, QA, and prod. So this is quite interesting, one, to practice, to implement on the project, and also for your certification. You have 8 questions on this topic, so get up. So tomorrow we will have tomorrow and day after especially we'll have a wonderful session. So I'll just start from an Excel, and with diagrams I'll show you like how we are going to head with this one. What are the different options, what are the different environment and instances. So as an architect, how do I look at the customer's requirement and define his landscape? So what are the recommendations that I provide? So how do I set this environment, development, QA and prod, and how do I do a code promotion, dev to QA, QA to prod? So all these things we will look at in tomorrow's class, so tomorrow and day after tomorrow. So that will be quite interesting. I'll try to keep it as interesting as possible. Just in case if I'm boring you somewhere, please let me know. I'll try to make it more interesting. And thank you guys. Thanks for your time and thanks for attending today's session. See you in tomorrow's session. So have a good day ahead. And
Rakesh,
yes, Sandeep, go ahead.
Rakesh? Yeah, one question from my side. See, the thing is like we are extracting the data from SAP, right? So if in between the data is refreshed or if any new material is created, so what we can do in the data services means like can we refresh the data store?
So once you extract, so this is when you talk about an extraction, this is a batch job that we are doing, right? So this is a batch job, which means it runs only once. You extract the data from source, and once you run this job, whatever the data that is present in your source, it will pull the data and load it into your target table. And once this is done, a new material is created. So you go and do a delta mechanism. You can implement that with timestamp calculation on data services. You can do deltas.
Okay, yeah.
So it is, no, the other question that you are probably asking is if a material is newly created on my source that has to be directly refreshed onto my target, then you can go with the real-time job.
Okay, so this will refresh.
Yeah, this will refresh automatically. Whenever there is a transaction hit on your source, the transaction gets reflected automatically on your target. Because, just a heads up on the real-time job, so because we create a real-time job and we convert this real-time job into a service and we will run this service. So a service is something like a web service that runs continuously. Till its services are down, it will be up and running. So till this service is up and running, indirectly your job is running continuously. So the moment there is a hit on your source table, the data will be pushed onto your target table. So that is what we do using real-time jobs.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Good question, Sandeep. All right. So let's connect tomorrow and let's continue with tomorrow's session. We'll talk about condition scripts and global variables, followed by the it's not developer role though, totally, but we will see both developers roles, testers roles, and admin roles in this activity. Okay, right, Sandeep, I'll cross-check with that. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so yeah, we'll catch up tomorrow then. Have a good night and good day ahead. Thank you guys.